Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to Mythgard and Middle-earth. My name is Corey Olsen, the Tolkien Professor, joined as always by my friend Gryfflet, who is enjoying himself his last view over the lovely valley of Udûn here in Mordor as we prepare to move forward into Dor Amarth, continuing our Mordor exploration. You know, there have been a number of real-world interruptions to my Gryfflet streaming since we started Mordor, so that it felt to me like a really long time ago. I'm like, man, Udûn took us like many streams to get through. And then I realized that it actually only took 6. It's just that those 6 streams have been stretched out over a large number of weeks. But in any case, and in addition, happy Tolkien's birthday to everybody. Absolutely. It is the birthday of the professor today. That is exciting. It's always fun to celebrate Tolkien's birthday. Yeah. All right. Let's celebrate Tolkien's birthday with some story time. Yeah, and also not jumping off the cliff, Gryfflet. How about that? Okay. We're going to talk to Narthavron and get this book bound. Because I get to keep it after it's bound, right? Ah, yes, I do know of these pages, for I am the author. One of the captain's spies made off with his journal when we first arrived, and I was only able to recover the binding. The pages were nowhere to be found. It is truly miraculous that you were able to find them. Here, allow me to rebind this tome for you. You may keep it for your efforts, and as a warning, we must never again allow evil to regain its footing here, lest it fester and grow. Okay, so what do I get? Well-preserved relic of the Last Alliance. Lost Lore Udûn. Is this is a book I can actually read? Is that correct? Like before I click this, I want to make sure I can read it afterwards. Copy of Lost Lore? Okay, no, this is something else here. Okay, all right. Let's see what happens here. Okay. So what do we have here? What is this? Copy of Lost Lore. There we go. This is more or less just what I was hoping for. I can't expand this, though, can I? Okay, so this is the whole... These are all the pages? Were there 14 pages? 4, 6, 7... Huh. Okay. He must write really big. That's okay. Ready? It is Udûn story time. This is our reward for finishing like each of the sections of the Black Book. By cunning, force, and treachery did Ugrichor, the captain of the pit, seize Duarthond and Udûn. The tower he made his own... And sorry, I could wish I could make this text larger, but I'll do my best. I'm like getting old and I need a new pair of glasses. So I'm like, okay. All right. Right, the tower he made his own and renamed to Duarthang, the Dark Oppression. The captain strengthened the fortifications of Udûn, restoring the old and built anew. Anglach arose, and Mornaur towered under his command. Sauron returned, and once again the forges blazed. Great stockpiles of orc arms were smithied, but the old alloys and dark enchantments were remembered too. Deep in Anglach, with great works and dark sorceries, Grond, the fearsome battering ram which broke the gates of Minas Tirith, was forged. New Morgul blades and... Oh, hang on a second. I'm not starting at the beginning. Grr. I'll come in again. Here we go. I was going to say, I thought that was a strange place to start. We believe it was in the Second Age, after Sauron came to Mordor, that he set to work building an army to make war against the kingdoms of men and elves. Well, it was certainly in the Second Age that Sauron set to work building an army to make war against the kingdoms of men, as that happened in the Second Age. Twice. Right, but you're dating it. I think the key element in that paragraph is after Sauron came to Mordor, right? So Narthavron is speculating that Sauron, is saying that Sauron came to Mordor before building his armies. That, like, this Mordor came first. It's like a chicken and the egg paragraph. Gotcha. Okay. In the Valley of Udûn, Sauron ordered great pits delved and forges and furnaces made. Here would be the parade ground of his orcish hordes, and the great forge works for their weapons and armor. Great wheels turned, bellows worked, and fires smoldered and belched. One forge, 100, 1,000. Okay, so this was always the forge place, even back in the Second Age. Strange ores Sauron found, which had been laid bare when the earth had trembled and broken, and these he smelted into secret alloys with dark enchantments. Morgul steel, the wicked knife, Gulthauk, and Mornagath, the shadow hammer, were foremost among the fearsome weapons forged with this new alloy, so he took them for his own. Udûn was yielded quickly, heedlessly, after our victory in the War of the Last Alliance, as the Dark Host fled back to make its ultimately doomed stand at Barad-dûr. We quelled forges and collapsed mines as we went, but in the end Udûn's best defense was our own haste to pursue the enemy. Over 7 years later, after siege, strife, and victory, did Isildur return as king and conqueror to the Vale of Udûn. There he commanded Durthon, the Black Shield, be built as an ever-vigilant watchtower of Gondor. For 16 centuries, the Thondrim, its keepers, dwelt here, but war, plague, and other attritions weakened the kingdoms of men, and in time the watch on Mordor faltered. By cunning, force, and treachery did Ugrichor, the captain of the pit, seize Durthon and Udûn. The tower he made his own and renamed to Durthang, the Dark Oppression. The captain strengthened the fortifications of Udûn, restored the old and built anew. Anglach arose, and Mornaur towered under his command. Sauron returned, and once again the forges blazed. Great stockpile of orc arms were smithied, but the old alloys and dark enchantments were remembered too. Deep in Anglach, with great works and dark sorceries, Grond, the fearsome battering ram which broke the gates of Minas Tirith, was forged. New Morgul blades and other evil implements were hewn from the cursed iron, mined from the pit, and hidden away in dark places. Who knows what evil still lurked away in these mountains? No, sorry. What evil is still locked away in these mountains. Okay. All right. Cool. Yeah, so that's... There are a couple things that are interesting here. I mean, of course, like, the whole thing is interesting. One, the idea that the Morgul weapons are made from a secret Morgul alloy. That there was, like, not just... So, my own supposition, Tolkien never explains this, of course, my own supposition was always that, like the Morgul knife that stabs Frodo, for instance, was a Morgul weapon. Morgul, remember, just means black sorcery. So, like, the word Morgul is a fairly vague word. I mean, it's almost as vague as the word devilry, right? That gets used to describe the blasting fire that takes the wall of Helm's Deep. Not quite as vague, but almost as vague. It just means black magic. So the black magic, the black sorcery dagger that stabs Frodo. I always took that to be like that it was a sort of a normal knife, though doubtless made with evil intent. The heart of the smith may well have been quite wicked. But nevertheless, like the sorcery was involved in like the setting of runes of dark power upon it afterwards. That seems to be implied both by Aragorn's comments when he finds it, and by Glorfin, and even more by Glorfindel's words when he looks at the hilt and says, "There are evil things written on this hilt, though you perhaps may not see them." So I had always, I had, I had always imagined that. Yes, sorry, JJ. So I was laughing because JJ is accusing me of saying there are only a few things interesting and the rest of it's dry and dull. No, that's not the point. What I mean, there are a few things of interpretive interest. That is, there are a few significant pieces of adaptation that are being done here in this version of the Mordor story that they're telling. Okay, so Morgul Steel. So that's really interesting. In their interpretation, right? In their adaptation here within the game, Morgul weapons are not just Morgul. They're not just regular weapons with spells laid upon them. They are made out of a special Morgul alloy, right? Yeah, exactly. Interesting. Phil is suggesting maybe the blade evaporates away because that's how the sunlight affects the alloy. That would be disadvantageous, one would think. I would want to be wearing armor that evaporated in the sunlight. But anyway, yeah. So here's what I find really interesting about that, the alloy interpretation, right? Their reading of what makes a Morgul weapon a Morgul weapon, that it's made with Morgul steel. And what's interesting to me about that, why I think that's an interesting and fun adaptation choice, is that Sauron was himself originally one of the people of Aule the Smith. And so to have the dark power of the Morgul weapons not be merely an act of sorcery, but an act of evil metallurgy, that's kind of very Sauron, right? That seems in keeping with the overall character of Sauron's, Sauron's character that we've seen, and that Tolkien tells us about. And of course, it's also not far from the entire lore of the Rings of Power, right? I mean, at the heart of Sauron's rule is his work with the Rings of Power and the One Ring. That is to say, a work of, forging, casting, probably, the rings, and presumably there was a metallurgic process there as well. Is the One Ring actually made of gold? It seems likely not. Yeah, no, so JJ is saying, talking about not just an act of sorcery, and it says, why would sorcery be entirely separate from metallurgy to begin with? If elves of Lorien can create magic through making things, why not Sauron? No, that's exactly what I'm saying. When I say just an act of sorcery, what I mean is the idea that the dark power is involved only in, like, casting spells upon weapons already made, right? No, that's what I find interesting about this adaptation, is that they are bringing Sauron's evil into the entire forging process, right? So that it is, JJ, you could easily say that, or rather, within this construction, Sauron can say, like like Galadriel, we put the thought of all that we love into all that we make, right? Sauron also does that, and what he loves is the corruption and destruction of things, right? So, and he puts the thought of that into everything that he makes, not just in this sense, not just in the act of inscribing runes, not even just in the act of forging the knife, but in the act of making the alloy, of forming the metal from which the knives are made. And that, of course, is more Sauron-like. That is, when the elves say we put the thought of all that we love into all that we make, you get the sense that that is like, I, the craftsman, am putting the thought of all that I love into this one thing that I'm making right now, right? Whereas Sauron, by putting his own thought into the alloy into the metal itself that is being worked, therefore enables his evil thought and evil intentions to go out from him and inform the work of all of the smiths and craftsmen being used at the tens, hundreds, and thousands of forges here in Udûn, if you see what I mean, right? So, and that, again, that's very Sauron. The distribution of his power, the infusion of his servants and slaves with his evil will, and a measure of his power as well. That's very Sauron. So it maps the whole Morgul steel thing, maps very well onto many of the things that we know. Again, I don't have any reason to believe that that's what Tolkien was himself thinking, but I think it's really interesting. And yes, Phil, exactly. If Sauron created the alloy in the first place, that could be when the infusion was accomplished. Yeah. No, I think that's really cool. Mornagauth the Shadowhammer. I like it. I like that Sauron's principal weapon is a hammer. Because, of course, like it sort of naturally would be. Because, not only because he's a smith, right? But also because Morgoth's primary weapon was a hammer, namely Grond, right? Now, the other thing that is, to me, of principal note in this story is the role of Ugrikor, which is, of course, a total fill in the blanks by them. Like, it's a complete invention. But the thing... So, the part of the storyline... Let me describe the gap. As I say, I call Ugrikor and several of the other lieutenants of Sauron that, I mean, all except one. I mean, the Mouth of Sauron is the only one that we know of the group, that are the centerpiece of the Mordor story. So anyway, I called that a fill in the gap thing. Let me describe the gap. The gap is not simply that Sauron must have had lieutenants, right? I mean, like, you can't run that whole empire all yourself. Like, there must have been others in charge of different areas and stuff. Like, he must have delegated some things because it's a big job. But anyway, like, that's so yeah, that's, from that perspective, you could call that like the gap that they're filling in. But I think there's more. There's also, in a sense, a historical gap to fill, or rather, there's a historical fact within the history of the Third Age of Middle-earth that demonstrates even more clearly the need for Sauron to have lieutenants. And that is the fact that Mordor fell into evil 1,000 years before Sauron himself returns to Mordor and reveals himself. All right, Sauron only returned to Mordor and revealed himself after he flees from, or feigns to flee, from Mirkwood at the time of The Hobbit, right, when the White Council drives him out of Dol Guldur. He's in Dol Guldur for a long time before that. While he's in Dol Guldur, Mordor is still being sacked. We know that the, Durthang fell. The date of Durthang falling is placed at a similar time. It's before the fall of Minas Morgul. Minas Morgul falls around the year 2000 in the Third Age. So even just thinking about that alone, like Minas Ithil becomes Minas Morgul in the year 2000. And it's the Nazgûl who lay siege to it for 3 years and finally take it. Now, that comes after they attack it from the east. Like, they come out of Mordor and attack it. Which is to say, Mordor has already once again become a stronghold of Sauron's forces prior to the Nazgûl taking Minas Morgul. And so they're working backwards from that. And so that's why the years that they give here with Ugrachor, yes, for 16 centuries, the Thundrim, 16 centuries. So they're imagining somewhere around 1600-ish of the Third Age, Ugrachor comes. So somebody's been holding Mordor, not just Minas Morgul, but all of the rest of Mordor. Somebody's been holding that. Somebody's been running it, and it hasn't been Sauron. So yeah, you can be like, yeah, well, there's the Nazgûl, right? The Witch King could be running the show. Yes, possibly he could be ruling all of Mordor from Minas Morgul, and I don't doubt that he was in charge of, I mean, even within the Lotro story. But anyway, the idea that Mordor has been, so this sort of story of Ugrachor setting up here in Udûn, really sort of seems to track to me. We've got the Nazgûl setting up in Minas Morgul, and they would be coming and supervising, but they don't live here, and this is removed. This is a good distance from where they are. They can get here, but they don't have their winged steeds yet. So anyway, like the years, and they're many years. There's almost 1,000 years that Mordor, more than 1,000 years, that Mordor is being dominated by the servants of Sauron prior to Sauron's return. And that's the gap that they are filling with these other captains and lieutenants. So what we're imagining as we're going through and meeting these leftover lieutenants of Sauron is not just like, Sauron comes to Mordor with his team, right? And now he's been defeated and he's gone, but his team is still there, right? It's not that. What we're imagining is Mordor has been ruled and developed for 1,000 years by Sauron's team, and then he just came and started running the place as CEO, right? But that only just happened 75 years ago, or so, before the War of the Ring. So anyway, as we're going through Mordor, and uncovering the places and the servants of Ugrachor here in Udûn, we're not just seeing somebody who set up camp less than 75 years ago. We are seeing someone who has been ruling this place for 1,400 years. Udûn is his kingdom, right? All of these places are the kingdoms of those lieutenants. And then Sauron came and took possession and ruled over them all. Right. But anyway, it does what Lotro does really well. That is to take things that are only just kind of briefly alluded to. You know, in those moments where Tolkien just kind of throws a sentence or two to kind of cover a whole story, to kind of cover a whole epoch sometimes, and say, okay, let's go there. Let's settle down. Let's explore that. So yeah, that's really, it's fun. It's fun. So yes, JJ, you're right. These aren't new realms that have arisen. These are long-standing subjects who have gained freedom. Yes. The lieutenants. Yes, exactly. Now, and that's interesting also, too. Because you're right. We can't assume that the lieutenants of Sauron were his, like, inner core, most faithful servants. Right? They were set up on their own. And there's no reason to think that they, you know, all truly loved Sauron in their hearts. You know what I mean? I mean, that's kind of not how evil works in Tolkien. So they were all setting up on their own. They had established their own realms. And then Sauron comes and takes them over. Sauron comes and takes them over and runs them and their kingdoms. And now they're free. From the perspective... Now, like, obviously the presence of Elessar and his army is, like, inconvenient to Ugrikor, for sure. But yes, there is a sense in which, from the perspective of the lieutenants of Sauron, the fall of Sauron is not just, you know, is not like the ultimate disaster that, you know, rocks their whole worldview, but an opportunity. A return to the good old days, you know, when they were ruling Mordor by themselves. And now they just have this pesky human king and his armies to worry about. So it's also kind of like a return to the bad old days of the siege of the Last Alliance, right? But yeah, it is this story, the story of the 1,400-year investment of Udûn by Ugrikor, really does help us to see this in a new way. Yeah. But yeah, okay. So that's a really fascinating piece of context. All right, awesome. Well, I have a copy of my book here in my inventory, which I'm never getting rid of. So excellent. Thank you, Narthavron. What deed? Oh, I got the deed. Okay, I was hoping for a deed. Lost Lore of Mordor. That's right. How many of them do I have? There's there's 8. Okay. Excellent. There is no deed in the game I am more determined to complete than this one. Ooh, you get a Mordor Lost Lore bookcase. Sweet. Okay. Great. So I do get what? Do I get one for Dor Amarth? There it is. All right, let's go start on it. It is time. It is time. So I know that I didn't get the Stable Master last time, but it's okay, because you know what? We're going to take our last triumphant ride. I know that. I thought that I was taking my last triumphant ride last time. But this time, if he can take the corner, good. This time we're going to go end to end, from the foothold all the way through to the Isenmouthe. Our final farewell tour. Goodbye, everybody. Thank you. Udûn Hammer, I enjoyed the good times. Okay, that's good. looking for flags and banners and trying to find invisible spies. That's right, forge worker. They can never take away the happy memories. Oh, I know we'll be back. It's not like we're never going to see it again. Still. Yeah, they're all green now. Exactly. Gryfflet's 112, y'all. I mean, I barely even noticed you guys. Next time I come back, you guys are going to be all grayed out to me. Okay, not that one yellow one. Interesting. Interesting to see the variety. Green and the blue and a couple yellow. Yellow means they're above me, doesn't it? So there's some like level 113 mobs here? Huh. Oh, the yellow ones are non-combatants. Okay, yeah. Well, that makes sense. Okay. All right. There it is. The Isenmouthe. Notice, again, with this sort of the new perspective, the new historical perspective that our story time provides us, notice that, yes, the Isenmouthe here serves as a secondary defense of Mordor itself. That as your attack, you know, if someone is attacking, they first have to get past the Towers of the Teeth and the Black Gate. And that's a big deal, right? Which is not going to be trivial to undertake. But if you do achieve that, you now have to get past the Isenmouthe. The Isenmouthe is guarded, but when has that ever proved a hindrance? I didn't even notice. Anyway, like, say, before you can enter into the Valley of Gorgoroth proper, you have to get through the Isenmouthe. So that's how I would have looked at it, right? Primarily. But that's not even when the Isenmouthe as a set of gates was built. It would have been built by Ugrachor. That is to say, he had the Black Gate in the north and the Isenmouthe to the south, in his own little realm of Udûn there, which was defended on both sides. The Isenmouthe was not just to keep people from coming south who had gotten through the Black Gate somehow. The Isenmouthe was designed primarily to defend Udûn from any other servants, you know, any of the other evil lieutenants, you know, the evil captains of Mordor, who might have been trying to move in on Ugrachor's territory, right? Did Frodo and Sam get anywhere near this far north? Not quite. They got close-ish, I think. So they... All right, Tower of Cirith Ungol. So they do come north towards the Isenmouthe, which is mentioned in the Lord of the Rings. So they're getting marched along this road with the orc troop. And I think it's probably actually somewhere not too far from here that they depart from the orcs and turn south. They do come a good bit north, basically. Their route, like if you map out their route in Mordor, it's indirect. It's not like they go make a beeline for the mountain. Yeah. Yeah. Tomas, I will answer your question in just a minute, but I need to, meet folks. Also, first of all, quick observation. What do you notice? The first thing we see inside the Valley of Gorgoroth proper. First thing we see on the side of the Isenmouthe, 3 Gondorian ruins. They're small, right? But they're all, so it's like, what, houses? Did somebody build a summer home here? I don't know. But there it is. Stable master, before I forget again. I know, I'm going to do the stable master. There we go. Okay. I've got Legolas and Gimli. Oh. That, my quest has already turned to that. Let's see. Where's the guy? Is it Ingold? I found Brungos in the Doomfold. Hi, Brungos. And I got Ingold here. I get to talk to him now. Hang on, I'm gonna complete my last Vector quest here.
Welcome to the Doomfold of Dor Amarth.
Hey, thanks. But even as I bid you this greeting, the words rebel upon my lips. Welcome? Who could be welcome in this place? It is the way of my people to survive in the wilderness, hunting game and foraging for food, even when the land seems barren. Those skills would be well tested in this place. Luckily, it should not be necessary. I have brought supplies enough to last me, and in any event, I would not trust anything that could grow here. Was this valley once fertile? I cannot imagine it, but mortal eyes are oft quick to judge, given how little we see of the great span of time. Before Sauron came, was this land green and growing? Brungos dismisses the thought with a shrug. Mayhap I will consider further when we are safely away from here, Gryfflet. For now, the land is dead and full of enemies. And we should ask pointed questions with dagger and blade, and set aside any questions that do not fell our foes. Okay, I see. So, that was an indirect injunction to me to go kill 12 things. Gotcha. All right. See, I'm following through on my pledge to keep up with keep the epic quest going, so I don't have to go back and do that whole thing again. I shall not get trapped like I did in Udûn. All right. Let's talk to Legolas and Gimli. Legolas, Gimli, and Ingold. It's good to be in the thick of things again, isn't it, Gryfflet? It was odd to see dwarves in Udûn. I did not realize that he lived in Mordor. Do you suppose there are more of my lost kin in these lands? Maybe. Gimli and I have not ventured over far into these lands, my friend, and I am not certain I wish to. The men of Gondor call this place Dor Amarth, the Doomfold in the common speech. Its name was wisely chosen by those men, for I feel a deep shadow looming over us, even so far from the ruins of the Dark Tower. Gimli has found old tools of dwarf make in this ruin, and though he will not speak of it, unease has crept into his mind. If ever dwarves dwelt within Mordor, it seems their fate was not a pleasant one, and that their line is long ended. This causeway forks some distance to the south. One path leads southward, and appears less well kept by the orcs, while the other rises and continues east to Barad-dûr. I would ask that you follow the causeway south to the fork, and then beyond to the east. Search for foes, or those still held as slaves, and perhaps we shall find something to raise Gimli's spirits, and draw his thoughts from those of his distant kin. Do not stray far from the road, my friend, for we have much still to learn of the hidden evils of Mordor. Okay, scouting mission. Can do that. Yeah, Phil, I was thinking about the so Tolkien does definitively describe Sam and Frodo as turning south. Like, they go all the way to the north of Mount Doom and then go south to it. I think that Lotro has meddled with the map somewhat, because there is no, like, the orc troop that they were being hauled along by was going to the Isenmouthe. Like, that was their destination. So they would not have proceeded with the orcs from here by the Tower of Cirith Ungol all the way up and then around, and then all the way around here 3/4 of the way to Barad-dûr before they then came south. It's just not, that would not have happened. It doesn't fit with the events of the Lord of the Rings. So I think that I think that the map has been messed with a little bit, which is fine. But yes, I think if you look at the Middle Earth map, hang on, let me get a map. Just gonna get my copy of the Return of the King here. Where are the maps? I'm forgetting where the maps are in this edition. I think if you look at the map, Mount Doom, first of all, in the Lothra map, Mount Doom and the slopes of Mount Doom take up, like, I don't know what, 60% or something, you know what I mean, of the entire plain of Gorgoroth, essentially. You see, I mean, like, it's massive. There's comparatively little plain around it. And that's weird. That's very different from the way that Tolkien depicts it in his map. And I assume for gameplay reasons, you know, right. Yes. Phil says, according to the Lothra map, Druin is nearly as big as Olympus Mons. Yes. The thing that's most remarkable about it is how it dominates the entire plain. Whereas you get a large plain and the mountain in the middle. Remember Sam looking south and saying it's every bit of 50 miles after they leave the path and start coming south? He's looking and says it's 50 miles away, right? You know, the slopes of Druin look like they're about, you know, 150 yards south of the road there, in some places. Yeah. Anyway, it's they're definitely not marched east from here. So again, map is a little bit different, but whatever. Okay, let's talk to Ingold.
We are Gondor's eyes and Gondor's swords in this place.
Yeah, Ingold. Good to see you again. It's still alive. We managed to push through Udûn with only a small resistance. Now the task before us is to see what remains of Sauron's citadel, Barad-dûr. I'm glad you are with us. Okay, so Ingold, I'm going to pretend not to notice all of the enemies who still invest Udûn behind us, right? Like, again, this is, for me, the challenging part of the Mordor storyline is that, on the one hand, it's like I am, you know, as I'm traveling through Mordor, I get the sense of being, apart from the, you know, the camps that I meet along the way like this, I get the sense that I'm like one of the first explorers to come in while the enemy still holds it. And yet I'm also being told to imagine that, you know, the army of Gondor has already, has already conquered the entire place. So, but I can do this. I am capable. Hey, a milestone. That could come in handy.
We are Gondor's eyes and Gondor's swords in this place.
As we have fought together on the Pelennor, I well know you can protect yourself. Still, the plains of Gorgoroth are filled with fires and crevasses caused by the eruption of Mount Doom. It is a dangerous place, and we must tread carefully. Our first scouting party has just returned, and with them they bring a captive. The man they have captured is a black Númenórean servant. He refuses to speak to us. We must either persuade him of our cause or somehow convince him to talk. I was hoping that you would try to speaking to the man, see if you can find out what he knows and who he serves. Possibly even whom he serves. Yes. Can do. Hi, Lomazar. I'm Gryfflet. Good to meet you. Wow. Dude, your skin looks like really unhealthy. Did somebody put out your eyes? Wow, you have a bunch of problems. Nice hat, though.
What do you want?
Well, okay, so the text on the screen says that he seems to have no interest in anything, but his voiceover just asked me a question, so he seems to have interest. Okay. Well, okay, he does nothing. Didn't work, Ingold. It's a no-go. Oh, I gotta intimidate him? Yeah, alright, hang on, I'll try that. Hang on, I want to see this from the other side. There we go. Show me your intimidation skills, Gryfflet. Oh, yeah? Oh, he flinched, huh?
What do you want?
I have nothing to say to the likes of you. He's starting to break. Shake your fist at him again. Yeah, I bet you look worried. I might punch you right in the knees.
Do not make me regret this.
If I speak to thee, Dulgabêth shall have me killed. The Black Word is not one to be reckoned with. Ooh. That's a great title, The Black Word. Love it. My name is Lomazar. I was once a faithful servant to Dulgabêth. I have made more than one mistake, and as punishment was struck blind. Ah, you did get your eyes put out. I thought so. To escape further torment, I severed my bonds, only to be captured again and brought here. Perchance you will spare me torment inside the walls of Mordor in exchange of knowledge? Sure. Edith is pointing out that it gives me the opportunity to travel from Ingold to him with a mithril coin. But, you know, I could have wandered off in the meantime, right? So, you know, yeah. Yeah. Actually, see, it would keep me from having to use the milestone. I could just go off and do another quest and then use that to bring me back to the camp. Okay. Yeah, I want to hear your story. Tell me more about the Black Word.
Do not make me regret this.
I say again, you must give your promise to send me away from these lands. Even rotting in a dungeon until the end of days would be better than endless pain and torture at the hand of the Black Word. You give your word that Lomazar will be treated fairly as a prisoner. Good. Now, listen closely, as I have not the strength nor will to repeat what I am about to say. Okay, listening carefully. I do not know why only the most important and awe-inspiring bits... Sorry, I've never heard the phrase awe-inspiring applied to the noun bits before. I love it. I do not know why only the most important and awe-inspiring bits fell to earth, while much of the city remains. Dulgabêth the Black Word, known to you as the Mouth of Sauron, has claimed what still stands of Barad-dûr. He has many followers, myself once included. Now Dulgabêth seeks to rule all of Mordor and take Sauron's place, by use of powerful relics buried within the tower's walls. Oh man, they're always looking for powerful relics. None will oppose him. Not sure that's true, man. His faithful maybe within Barad-dûr. His faithful servants are not to be trifled with either. Glurûgoth, the Hole Warden. He could use a title upgrade. Sapakar, the Cleaver, like that guy, for instance. Krasa Fursa, Bringer of Tears. Look at that. Oh, man. The Hole Warden really got the shaft when it came to titles, I gotta tell you. These are all names that strike fear upon mention. Do you now possess the knowledge you seek? Yeah, kind of. Okay, so Dulgabêth, a.k.a. Mouth of Sauron, a.k.a. the Black Word, is... So I assume Dulgabêth in, Neo-Black speech, it just translates to Black Word. I mean, that's the way that's presented. It's how it normally works. And that makes sense. Because, of course, remember one of the things that we're told about the Mouth of Sauron, that he doesn't remember his own name. So it might seem a little bit strange that, like, as soon as Sauron is dead, like, we immediately get told what his real name was when the text said he didn't have a name. But I actually don't consider that a contradiction of that moment in the text. Because this is not a name, it's a title. He is called Dulgabêth, the Black Word. So, again, I don't think that's what his mama named him. Essentially, is what I'm saying. But the Black Word is cool. That is seriously cool. He is the logos of Sauron. The Word. That's neat. Mouth of Sauron is cool because it, makes it sound like you are, you speak for him. Like, you don't just speak for him, but like every word that you say are Sauron's own words, right? But it's one thing to have Sauron's words coming forth from you as if you were the mouth. It's another thing to like be the words of Sauron. Like, I am that which Sauron has uttered. Right? You are to obey Sauron's commands. I am Sauron's command. Right? Like, that's kind of awesome. I really love that. Okay, but hang on. I'm trying to remember. We've got Glurûgoth, the Hole Warden. Okay, Glurûgoth, the unfortunate of title, who's probably, I'm going to guess that Glurûgoth is a troll or maybe a very large orc. Sapakar the Cleaver, he's probably a very large orc. And then Krasa Fursa is the Bringer of Tears. Krasa Fursa is going to be like an Easterling or something. Krasa Fursa is a totally different language. Glurûgoth and Sapakar both sound like they're probably black speech, but Krasa Fursa certainly not. And of course that name sounds like the Forakhel names that we've had. So Krasa Fursa is going to be something. I'm also suspecting, I suspect Krasa Fursa of being female as well, but we'll see. Krasa Fursa is, I expect some kind of, not Easterling, because it doesn't sound like an Easterling name. Angmaran? Like Hillman? From that area? Really interesting. But anyway, human, possibly a woman. The Bringer of Tears. Sapakar, probably the slave driver. Hole Warden, probably the, like the prison guard, keeper of the dungeons of Dol Guldur. Barad-dûr, I mean. And Bringer of Tears was probably like a torturer or something, I'm guessing. Krasa Fursa, I bet, has met Gollum. Probably Glurûgoth too. Okay. So, do I possess the knowledge I seek? Well, you didn't explain everything, but to be perfectly frank, Lamazar, I was keen to guess a lot of it anyway, so I'm content. Ooh, what do I get to do? Search rubble. So, wander freely from the path, just like, Legolas tells me not to do. Complete the Wrath of Glurgoth, complete the Edge of the Abyss, and complete Treasures Forgotten. Okay. Got a whole thing going on here. Got three whole other side quests to complete. I am content. Okay, no other quest to pick up. Ingold, not interested in this information. I'm just acting on it myself. Okay, Ingold, no problem. All right. So, plot lines thus far in Dor Amarth. We've got... Where are we going? Oh. Okay, it's all taking me way up towards Bar. We're going to go visit Barad-dûr directly, and we're skipping everything in the interim. I know, we'll come back to it, but... Okay. Oh, hang on a second. Wait, he's got another one? Glad I noticed that. Oh, I've got to actually get those 3 quests.
Must I speak with the likes of you?
I would be wary in tracking Sabakar the Cleaver. The mighty Ologhai... Ooh. I was wrong. Sabakar is the troll. Okay. The mighty Ologhai might easily be outsmarted, though he makes up for such in brute force. Okay, so the Cleaver was the troll. Fine.
Do not make me regret this.
If you seek allies of Dulgabêth, look first to an enemy of Sauron. Many years ago, a beast by the name of Narthavron, crossed Sauron. He was locked away in the dungeons of Barad-dûr for his crimes. The dungeons can still be found within the ruins of the citadel. There are troubling rumors that Dulgabêth has spoken with Narthavron. Find the beast and kill it at once. If the tales are true, there are few as dangerous as Narthavron in the lands of Mordor.
What?
You wish to seek more knowledge about Krasafursa, the bringer of tears. I cannot help you. While I have seen the wraith... Ooh, she's a wraith. Ah, she is a woman. She is a mystery. She follows her own will and serves Dulgabêth with devotion, but it is in her own secretive ways. Oh, so she's a wraith. Krasafursa really does sound kind of finished, doesn't it? Okay, I am so excited about Krasafursa. Okay, Ingold.
Hey.
You describe Sabakar as best you can to Ingold. Men under my command have reported a large creature similar in description to this Sabakar that you mentioned. The monster was last seen near Barad-dûr. I hope this assists you in your search. Well, no. I was going to look there anyway, but that's okay. Ingold has seen a foe matching Sabakar's description. Wait, in Mordor? You've seen like a big troll? Wow. Okay, no, that's real helpful. I appreciate that. Okay, now let me look at my map, and it looks pretty much identical. Apparently, an orc who might know what Krasafursa is seeking is nearby. However... Carrion and I are going to do Legolas' scouting quest first. And, Tomas, I'm going to come back to your question. So, there is a somewhat confusing... his question was about the name of the protagonist of the War of the Rohirrim, Hera. And, like, is that even an Old English name? It is an Old English name. It's an Old English name that is attested many times. The thing is, it's a boy's name. The A ending. Is this not the junction I'm supposed to go to? Oh, hang on. I gotta get down and look for the particular piece of dirt. There we go. A dwarf and a goat still lying beside the road. Okay. Slain riding goat. Far from wild, the goat is saddled and laden with various trinkets and supplies. The dwarf lies slain in armor of finer make than that of the orcs. Wrought of dark steel, the shield remains unblemished, despite the fate of its wielder. I bet Gimli would be interested in the shield. Deliver the dwarf shield to Gimli. Yeah, that's what I figured. Okay, let me just do that right away. I'm keen to do the quests in something like geographical order. I'll follow the storyline that it's giving me, and clearly our primary push into this area is this set of Dulgabêth and his sub-lieutenants. Okay, if we call the main dudes the captains of Mordor, then I can call these other people the lieutenants. Hopefully they don't have like a set of sergeants serving under them or whatever. But yeah, let's do this right away. But anyway, let me finish my thought, Tomas, before I get distracted again. Hera is a boy's name. Again, the A ending is masculine in Old English. So just as the AS ending is masculine plural in Old English. So like the Eorlingas is a masculine plural ending, right? The people of Eorl. Anyway, so Hera is an Anglo-Saxon name, but it's a boy Anglo-Saxon name. The somewhat like peculiar thing that they did was not to give her a non-Old English name. They gave her a boy's name. And I can see why, because the A ending looks feminine, because we're used to... the A ending is feminine in Latin, right? And therefore, because of Latin and Romance languages... English speakers are used to associating the A ending with feminine and girls' names, like Maria, right? I mean, many Romance languages have A ending names, which are female names, right? So I can totally understand why they want to take the... why, like, if they chose the name Hera, they would give it to a woman instead of a man. So it's not that doesn't make sense a little bit from that angle. But of course the choice, you mentioned Greek mythology, and of course this is the problem, is that the first thing that any English speaker who is familiar at all with Greek mythology, or even seen any of the Greek mythology movies which have come out in the last 10 years, will have heard the name Hera, as of course Hera was Zeus's wife, the queen of the gods in Greek mythology. So that association is pretty strong with the name Hera, which also, of course, is another reason why you wouldn't want, they would be resistant to using Hera as a boy's name in the way that it was actually used in Old English. It still doesn't explain the choice of that name, though. Like, why would you fixate on that name? Why not use like a legitimate woman's name? Well, first of all, there aren't that many legitimate there aren't as many women's names attested in Old English as boys' names. Yeah. Anyhow, so yeah, I can't explain the choice, but yeah, it is the kind of cognate or apparent cognate, right, in modern English, the association, perhaps I should just say, in modern English with the word hero, right? It does almost look like a feminization of the word hero. Yeah, it's not that I think it's indefensible, and it's fine. Like, I got used to it, right? In watching the film, I got used to it. Like, I got over it. But I agree, almost everyone that I know, like, their initial reaction when they heard that the protagonist of the movie's name was Hera was like, that's weird. Like, you have to like break yourself of the Greek mythology association and then warm up to it. And I did, like, that was fine. But I
I admit I find that a peculiar choice for that reason. Like, they chose to give their heroine a name which there was work to be done in order to, like, acclimate yourself to it. And it seems to me peculiar to erect those kind of obstacles, basically, between your viewers and the protagonist. But, yeah. Anyway, yeah, I have no issue at all with the switching, like the application to her of a boy's name. Like, again, in my mind, that is more than anything else a testimony to the fact that we, from our dominantly Romance language perspective, I mean, just imagine if there had been, you know, a very burly male warrior character in the text named Hera, or in the movie named Hera, right? Everyone would be like, it would be, you know, the memes would be cutting, right? So again, it makes sense to me that the gender issue from our Romance language perspective would be a challenge. And then you add the mythological you know, thing on top of it, and you've got problems. So anyway, okay. What is this? You tell Gimli of the slain dwarf you found and offer him the shield. By your description of his wounds, the dwarf you encountered must have been caught by a stray stone thrown from the depths of Mount Doom. A poor dwarf indeed, but not one slain by malice. The Dark Lord must not have brought my kin to ruin after all. Aha! Look at this, my friend. The shield is newly forged and crafted by skilled hands. So dwarves still dwell in Mordor, but where have they made their home? Aye, this is a tricky land. I do not know what beasts could live in such a place, but dwarves are hardy folk. These dwarves of Mordor must dwell somewhere in the Doomfold, but perhaps they do not wish to be found. If they make use of dwarf doors, as the House of Durin once did in Khazad-dûm, even the most thorough search would never bear fruit. Let us hope it does not come to that. You found the dwarf near the causeway that leads to the Dark Tower, didn't you? If you ask me, no dwarf would be wise to travel these lands alone, and even if one did, they would soon be sought out if they did not return. Patrol the causeway to the east, and see if you do not find others of his kin, and ones with better luck, I would hope. All right. Okay. Presumably I'll head down to Fusham Tomb at some point. Okay. All right. Yes, I agree, Edith, that they could have used another male Old English name that didn't sound like a Greek goddess. Yes. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Like I said, I can't... I cannot speak for, like, what the plan was. But, you know, or, like, what the rationale was. But I do acknowledge the problem. Oh man, I wanted to like look at that thing to the side. Oh. What have we here? Statue with glowing red eyes. It's not seeming to affect me when I go past it. I better put my hat on. What? I was getting shadow after all this Light of Earendel. I was so far in the Pearl just a minute ago. All right. Clearly I have to keep upgrading my stuff. Oh, a swimming pool. You found a company of exhausted dwarves gathered near a muddy cistern. Oh, it's a cistern? Really kind of looks like a swimming pool. Hey, guys. Yeah, it looks a little nasty. I wouldn't do it, man. Offering water? Well, that's kind. Offer water to dwarves at Blosrock. Okay, so we've got the Dwarves of Mordor quest line. That's excellent. Okay. Yeah, JJ says, I didn't find it all that distracting. So, the problem I had with it was before the release of the film. When there was, like, when we had nothing but, like, the name of the character and some pictures, right? Then I was like, you know, when I had nothing to do but think about the name, I was, you know, distracted by it. It certainly didn't, like, reduce my enjoyment of the film. Sorry, trying to look at old Spakorth from the front here.
Our fortunes are lost, and our people broken.
What is it? Why are you bothering? Spakorth turns and flinches at once upon seeing you. What do you want? Why have you come here? Whatever your purpose is here, we want no part of it. One of Spakorth's expedition calls to him and tells him of the water you offered them. You do not mean us harm? Sauron told us that the folk of the West were not to be trusted, especially those of the kingdoms of men and elves. Well then, let us speak, and I shall decide if we have been misled.
Sauron took everything from us, and then he took more.
It has been long since my folk last spoke to outsiders, especially those with the might to bring him low. For what purpose have you come to these lands? To liberate its peoples? Conquest? I suppose it does not matter now. You are here, and so that is that. The deathless may not see it so, but their quarrels are their own. I must ask, in your vast armies, were there any dwarves? We have seen naught of our kin and cousins in the land beyond Mordor since the early days of our folk in the mountains to the east, and I would be gladdened to learn that we are not the last dwarves in this realm. You tell Spakorth of Gimli and of the house of Durin's folk. Ah, so one of my kin has come to these lands. If he so wishes it, I would much desire to meet with him. Tell me, where is Gimli? Tell this Gimli of the Stout-axes of Mordor. If he wishes to meet with me, I would have us forge a new peace free of Sauron's influence. Go, I shall wait here for a time, and if you do not return, I shall honor his choice. Excellent. Oh, well, this is a happy reunion. Interesting. So, what I'm getting from good old Spakorth there is that the dwarves of the Stout-axe dwarves of Mordor were oppressed by Sauron, but they were not merely slaves. They seemed to have an independent culture, though one that was living in subjection to Sauron here in Mordor. And that makes sense for two reasons. One, it makes sense given the fact that if one imagines the dwarves of old, back during the time of like the only recently named hills and dells, that the dwarves would find Mordor back when it was, green and growing, presumably, before Sauron found it, like in the First Age, and thought this was a great place to set up, right? I could easily imagine a clan of dwarves taking up residence in Mordor pre-Sauron, and then Sauron discovering them when he comes, and his captains thereafter, right? So that there would be this long history of like alliance and subjugation, essentially. And it makes sense in addition, because Tolkien says at one point, remember that apart from elves, there were people of every kind on both sides in the War of the Last Alliance. So that some dwarves fought on the side of Sauron is explicit, though we're not told their story. So imagining, rather than imagining an evil group of dwarves who like willfully and delightedly, join themselves to Sauron, imagining ones who were essentially, who were here long before he, so that when Sauron arrived, the dwarves were here already, and that he, again, initially allied with them, later subjugated them, but they certainly in their own minds remained an independent people, and yet fought with him, were convinced to side with him in the Last Alliance. That works for me. And yeah, Phil, I agree. Given how they love how the dwarves love Erebor, I'll bet the dwarves mourn the ruin of Orodruin. Yeah, I bet. You found them after all, Gryfflet. Ho-ho, tell me more of them. You tell Gimli of the Stout-axes dwarves of Mordor and of their origins in the mountains to the east. You also mention that Spakorth has asked to meet with Gimli at the muddied cistern of Blosronk to the east. Stout-axe dwarves? I have never heard of a house by that name in all my years. Perhaps it was a name given to them by the Dark Lord, or their line was broken. Gimli appears initially perplexed by this news, but a wave of merriment soon washes over his face. Still, they did you no harm, so I shall hear this Spakorth's words. Legolas lets out a stern cough. Oh, you think they're up to something, do you? Well, for all I know of them, they might well be. Why don't you come along too, Legolas? Okay, let us, by all means, go to Blosronk. Spakorth takes the high ground so as not to be looking up at Legolas. Aye, he's a dwarf, all right. Not that I doubted you, Gryfflet, but I am just as surprised as you to find dwarves here in Mordor. The Stout-axes. I must admit I have many questions I wish to ask about the early years of their folk and how they came to dwell here. There is so much to be learned from them. Even if they toiled under the Dark Lord, I'd wager they're still a better lot than the Dour Hands. See, Legolas, it's not like he's got evil eyes painted all over him. I think it's time we properly introduce ourselves. Hail, I am Gimli, son of Glóin, of Durin's folk. Hail to you, Gimli of Durin's folk. I am Spakorth of the Stout-axes. I am one of many servants to the Mistress of Lûghash, and I come bearing an offer of peace between our houses. You speak for this Mistress of Lûghash, or for the Stout-axes? I speak only for my kin, and they desire to be free of the Mistress's rule. Okay. We wish only to rule ourselves once more. Will you aid us? So, if I could ask, is your mistress a wraith? You served Sauron, did you not? How can we trust your words? That is Legolas. Nonsense. They did not do so willingly, Legolas. It is a fair question, Gimli. Words alone do not merit much, but we seek only for peace and to be free of evil.
Long have we toiled, and for what?
Gimli seems a fine dwarf, and I am glad to have met him. He has many questions, and I am pleased to say that I can provide him many of the answers he seeks. If there is time enough, I have questions of my own. Oh, sorry, I'm missing a whole conversation here. I'll get back to it. We Stout-axes hold little sway in Mordor, but we dwell in peace within the flaming spire under the rule of Mistress Zoreth. Well, maybe she's a sergeant. We are no dwarf kingdom of old, but we are not so few as to be forgotten in this land, for even Sauron could not forget us. If you or Gimli wish it, you are welcome to visit our home in Lûghash, provided the mistress does not find out, of course. Ha! But if she didn't know you were there... Okay, so you're going to sneak us in?
Long have we toiled, and for what?
Okay, hang on. So the conversation that I missed was Gimli saying, "By Durin's beard I swear your folk shall be free once more." And Legolas says, "I will not protest, Gimli, but one of us must return to Dingarth and keep watch on Dor Amarth. And so I shall." Okay, so Legolas is out. Is he actually gone? I can't even tell. Hang on. Yeah, he's totally gone. Okay.
Bah! Enough of this standing around!
The tale of the Stout-axes is not a pleasant one, friend, but I would share it with you. Once we were Draza's folk, a great kingdom of dwarves, but no longer, and it is only now that Sauron is gone that I dare to utter the name of the father of our folk. Okay. Early in this age, so early Third Age, I assume he's referring to, not Fourth Age, Sauron ordered us to return the great ring of power he granted to our folk when we still dwelt in the east. The Dark Lord sought for it some unknown purpose. And when our king of old denied him his prize, Sauron summoned forth a vast army and razed our ancestral home and stripped the golden halls of Usk-Toga. Many of our clan were slain, and those few who survived were taken as thralls to Mordor to serve the Dark Lord. We were made to forsake our clan name of old and swear ourselves to Sauron. Oh, so they didn't settle here first. Okay. And swear ourselves to Sauron. And so we became the Kirvisa, the Stout-axes of Mordor. Okay, so the Stout-axe clan was established as a subset of their old clan, whom he has not named. So the Stout-axe identity originated with the swearing to Sauron. Okay. Yet, throughout our long centuries of toil, we held to the old ways, and the line of our kings of old remained unbroken. We were slaves, yes, but some measure of who we were endured, and we made for ourselves a small realm of our own in secret within the land of Mordor. But Sauron knew all too well that which we had hoped to conceal from him. 78 years ago, yes, that's a reasonable time, the Stout-axes were unmade. In a rage, the Dark Lord returned to Mordor from lands unknown and imprisoned our king. Okay, so it's during the time of Sauron's absence, during the time of the rule of the captains in Mordor. And also, presumably, during the first 1400 years, during the Watch of Gondor, that the dwarves had established. It's interesting it doesn't refer to that time. Were they not in that? No, it's early in this age. That's not possible. Is it? Would Sauron have demanded the return of the Ring of Power in the early Third Age? I mean, that dwarf rings were in circulation in the Third Age is obvious, right? I mean, like, you know, Thorin's grandfather had one still. So, like, that they would be around, yeah. But in the early Third Age, how is Sauron in any position to be demanding anything of anybody? I mean, he was still in the I am recently dead state, right? The stage which... Yeah, you know, the stage which the Rings of Power characterized in the Spaghetti Monster, right? Yeah, Drasnake, that is interesting. Maybe these dwarves measure ages differently. Well, let's think about that. I mean, I don't know. There's no precedent for that. And I don't just mean in the text. I mean in the game. I can't think of anyone. Like, ages have always been objective markers of time, I think. Possibly? Well. Anyway, I won't perseverate on it, but that seems odd. Okay, let's assume something else. Let's assume that by early in this age, he doesn't mean like the year 5 of the Third Age. Yeah, it's a pretty wide window, Drasnake. That's what I'm thinking. So let's say he meant the year 1000 or something. Year 1000 is still only 1/3 of the way through the age, so early, right? Closer to the beginning of the age than to now. At that point, I could see Sauron. We know that Sauron is seeking for the rings. Sauron as necromancer in Dol Guldur is seeking, draws Thran to him with the ring, right? So a Sauron, the recall order on the dwarf rings. Yeah, the recall order on the dwarf rings is very much something that could have been happening over the course of the Third Age. That makes a certain amount of sense. Okay, so early, third of the way through, somewhere between the year 1000 and 1500 or so. Because Sauron has to not only have the strength to recall the ring, but he also has to then have the strength to summon forth a vast army and raise their ancestral home, which takes a bit of doing. He could raise an army of Easterlings, presumably. But see, this is on the dangerous skirts. Like the thing about fill in the blank adaptations is, like, what you always need to be careful about is it's not that you can't change the story, but you can't change. So there's like, when you're doing fill in the blanks, there's like two different creative adaptation procedures, right? One is the framework. What is the known story that serves as the framework for the thing that you're filling in the blanks of? And of course, you can make changes to that framework. So your primary activity in the fill in the blank story is to tell a story that Tolkien didn't tell, from a part of history that Tolkien didn't flesh out. But you can change things in the frame, the parts of the story that Tolkien did tell. But you need to make sure that the whole story taken together still works. So the challenge that I see here, the danger, this is a perilous innovation in some ways, I think. Because if we're imagining that Sauron early in the Third Age had the wherewithal to summon a vast army and raise the ancestral home of the dwarves, he could theoretically have taken his vast army and done other things with it. Now, it can still be made to work. I call it dangerous. I mean, again, the implication in the text is that Sauron was not capable of raising, and I shouldn't use the word raise as it's being used. The homonym raise is being used in a different sense here. But anyway, the stories that Sauron didn't have the capacity of assembling a large military force until the end of the Third Age. That's why he didn't do what he did. It's like, he was waiting for his plans to come to fruition and his own power to be restored, both his own personal power and his military power. So imagining a preemptive strike like that earlier on is harder. But I think it's doable. Here's why I think it's doable. If one asks the question, well, if Sauron could summon forth this vast army, why didn't he attack Gondor a millennium before? And the answer is because Gondor was still way too strong at that point. Gondor was still in its post-Númenorian stage. I mean, the power of Gondor in the first half of the Third Age was very, very great. So an army which a dwarf clan in the East considers vast is one thing. An army that could have threatened Gondor is another. I mean, one of the things, presumably, that Sauron is doing is not only waiting over the course of 3,000 years until he himself is strong enough, but also waiting over the course of 3,000 years until his enemies are weak enough as well. I mean, that's clearly... And he was conspiring towards that in various ways, like the Witch King in the North, right, with Arnor and such. So we see lots of evidence that Sauron, over the course of the Third Age, is playing the long game. And so this could easily be seen as part of that. Okay. All right. I'm on board. I'm figuring it out. Right. The key is just not to invest too much in the word early. Okay. So if it's in the Third Age that he brings them, the dwarves, now calling themselves the Stout-axes, into Mordor, they would have been living here under the direction of the captains, under the rule of the captains, potentially for at least a millennium or two. Let's just go ahead and assume that the middle of the age is also early compared to now. I'm going to assume it's got to be after the captains, because who was there to enslave them in Mordor? Sauron didn't live here. And again, so they talk about Sauron taking them and bringing them to Mordor and enslaving them here, but Sauron himself didn't do that, right? It was certainly not the bringing them here. He didn't live here yet. Only the captains were here. So they were enslaved by and under the captains, one or other of the captains, Dulgabêth presumably, as this is the Dulgabêth area that we seem to be in right now. Yes, Phil is pointing to the Wain Riders and the Great Plagues. Yeah, exactly. Sauron is was definitely playing the long game with all of his enemies, attempting to weaken them before he dealt the final stroke, right? Okay. So how the Stout-axes would seem to fit into this plan is he's trying to get the Ring of Power back for his own purposes, but then he takes the survivors of the dwarves and he brings them here to Mordor, and he establishes them as slave labor here because they'd be useful. Sauron's in a waste not, want not kind of perspective. But since he himself is not here dominating their wills and enslaving them, they're not enslaved so much as displaced and oppressed, right? And Spakorth, is speaking of their adopting their own, secretly establishing their own kingdom, their own realm, right? Yeah. We made for ourselves a small realm of our own in secret within the lands of Mordor. Okay, in defiance, presumably, of Dulgabêth or whichever of the captains was supposed to be ruling them. But Sauron knew all too well, but they couldn't hide from Sauron, so when he shows up, things change. Right. He returned to Mordor from lands unknown and imprisoned our king and countless other Stout-axes in the dungeons of Barad-dûr. Okay, gotcha. Yes. All right, sorry. Let's... What little freedoms we had were taken from us, and even the lowliest orcs came to regard us as mere vermin. In the absence of our king, I and many others remained to toil in Lûghash, and whenever Zoreth was not summoned to Barad-dûr, she too dwelt within Lûghash. Now Sauron is gone, but still we serve, hated as we are now in the eyes of all in Mordor. After the fall of the Dark Lord, none but the Mistress of Lûghash, Zoreth, deigned to offer the rest of our kin shelter and keep us from the orcs. In our desperation, it would seem we have traded one master for another, but we are too far from the Black Gate, and escape now seems no more possible than it did when Sauron ruled Mordor. And to where would we even escape? Zoreth desires the weapons and trinkets of the Dark Lord above all else, and what portion of his might remains in them I cannot say. We have sought them nearly every day since his fall, but every search has come to naught. Days we have searched now, and with little food or rest. Wait, what are you searching for? Oh, evil relics, of course. It is time for my kin to return to Lûghash, even if Mistress Zoreth does not wish it. There are 4 other expeditions about in this land. Find them and send them home to Lûghash. If you wish to meet my folk, you shall meet us all. Okay.
Our fortunes are lost, and our people broken.
Lûghash rises to the east, nestled within a rocky hill atop a deep valley. Alas, the Stout-axes are not the only ones in service to the Mistress of Lûghash. You see, Mistress Zoreth has grown emboldened since the fall of the Dark Lord, and she has drawn many vile spirits into the watching stones of this land. Aha! Through their eyes, both servants and foes are revealed, and their designs exposed. She is distrustful even of her own kin, and so she instead wields her spirits as servants and spies. In this way, she seeks to find the resting places of the Dark Lord's most powerful trinkets. Okay, powerful trinkets, also an unusual noun or adjective-noun combination. We Stout-axes think it is a foolish search and would have no part in it were the choice ours. If you wish to come to Lûghash, you must challenge her watching stones and banish the spirits from them. If you do not, she shall soon know of you and Gimli. When it is done, and her spirits have been cast back to the shadows, I shall meet you at the lower gates of Lûghash. That's good. Fortunately, I don't feel like I'm being used at all. Not at all. Okay. Great. Yes. We are looking for mere trinkets that Zoreth fancies. Did you look in that artifact chest right over there? I don't know. Kind of looks like a place to look for trinkets. I mean, I don't think I can look in it, but... Another deed? What do we have? Oh, last reserves. Bunch of ronks. Okay. Okay, so I'm blinding the watchstones. Where are those? Is that... What? Okay, I think I did just pass one of those, right? Yeah, I did. Okay, good. Recall the Stout-axe expeditions, right? Okay. So we've got, yeah, those are the 4 ones. And, okay. So is Zoreth a sergeant under Crasafursa, there it is. Yeah, I think, maybe. She's got the spirit thing going on. There's some wraithification happening. Okay, Gimli, I'll take care of it. Then we'll focus on those two. Yeah, let's do the Stout-axe thing here first. We're running out of time, but yeah, Drow Snake says I need a Mordor org chart. Yeah, exactly. It's a little complicated. Okay, so who's this? Oh no, this is Lûghash itself, isn't it? No, Lûghash is up there. Huh. Okay, but I'm not supposed to go here. I'll come here later. Okay, fine. You know, bats that can just hover. It's, you know, it's pretty serious stuff right there. Okay, I'm going to go over to this spirit over here. Yeah, they're like humming bats. And do you see how slowly he was beating his wings? Man. Okay, here we go. Hi there, Watching Stones. So this whole, like, investment of stones with evil spirits things, it's a certified technique. Oh, I just had to, like, dare it to come out, and then it does. Oh, and it's kind of a wimp. I guess that counts as an enemy in Dor Amarth. Okay. Well, that was easy. Okay, so I guess I'll mount up. So we're gonna go about, and we're gonna freeze. We're gonna release spirits from the stones, which all you have to do is ask nicely, and they just come right out. Oh yeah, there's bunches of these. And again, you'd think if Aragorn and his army had come through here, somebody would have taken care of this. Because, you know, again, this isn't really hard. Yeah! You just gotta come and say, yeah! And then there they go. Next thing you know, there's an unbound fell spirit, which takes 3 hits and it's gone. Aragorn could totally have taken these. Are they close enough that I can just go in? I'll just go in stealth. I don't want to keep getting on and off my horse. Besides that, I can cut cross country without worrying about these disturbing looking salamanders. I know I'm supposed to kill 12 things around here, but I'm kind of proud of the fact that I haven't killed anything but these spirits from the Watching Stones. Oh, it's a fell beast Watching Stone. Oh, that's cute. Whoa. This one's running away. Hey! He escaped. Oh, that was a cowardly spirit. What was up with that? Okay. Forsterment stone vessel, the fell spirit turns and flees towards Lûghash. So just by saying, yeah, I'm forcing it? No, I couldn't even target it. It wasn't hostile. I was trying to, like, do things to it, but it wouldn't because it wasn't hostile. Okay. Okay, no, I gotta keep going this way. Okay, so the first thing that we notice about Lûghash is that it's Gondorian. Clearly. I mean, you can tell by the stone. They're always importing that white stone. Yeah, see, I can't. Oh, there he goes. And he's off. Yeah, I can't do anything hostile to him. Okay, fine. So I think, yeah, there's only one more of those. I got some dwarves due north, though. Let's check this out here. We've got the evil rhinoceroses and the evil goats, the humming bats, the salamanders. I gotta go up on top of this little thing. Rabid ruins bat, huh? Yeah, somewhere up here. Some Stout-axes I'm supposed to tell to go home, and oh, they're there. And they're just going to listen to me for some reason. Hey guys, nothing to see here. You should totally abandon this. Yeah, no, I totally speak with Zoreth's authority. Obviously. Because if a hobbit in Gondorian armor doesn't speak with Zoreth's authority, then who does? Okay. Back other side of the road. Yeah, going in straight lines in Mordor is non-trivial. Oh, nice little shot of slopes of Mount Doom. Should probably re-stealth myself, though. Okay. Guess I might as well talk to this orc since I'm finding him here. Hey, do you know what Crossoforsa is seeking? My quest map suggests that you do. I was going to ask you, but I guess what I'm actually going to do is... Oh, okay. Stab you in the back and now you're willing to talk. How would I know what that wraith seeks? I don't know. My quest map just says that you do, so out with it. Oh. No? So I'll leave you in peace, will I? Fine. Searching for orcs who, for some reason, I have reason to believe. Oh, I see. I was going to say, from a distance, I was going to say that this is a Gondorian keep that they've done very little to evil. You know, like they put evil spikes around the topmost tower, but, you know, and made the fire smokier at the top. But apart from that, it seemed like a perfect... But then now I see there's all these evil towers that have been added to it, but that fade into the background there, so you can't see them from a distance. And notice that it's ruinous. So this was not a working fortress that was made evil. It was a ruined fortress that was made evil, and only half. Oh, scattered equipment. Unfortunate fate. Oh dear. These Stout-axes didn't make it. Which means maybe I shouldn't jump down into that crevasse there, is what you're saying? Okay. Oh, there's another cowering orc over here. I see you. All right. Maybe, if it's all right, Druid's Fire, maybe I'll just, I'll find the other two dwarf patrols, or dwarf things, and then I'll... I saw the Wraith. She went towards the north. Okay. Her last known location is not far from here. Okay. All right. So let me just go and do my finish my two Stout-axe quests here. There's another... There he is. Another watchstone here. Then let me go find the two dwarf things, and then we'll be ready to move up towards Lûghash next time. Resists my efforts. Well, that's not okay. I said, yeah, pretty clearly, I think. Oh, man. Okay. Mordor overland travel. Can I get through here? No? I have a feeling I'm going to have a bunch of can't get there from here problems. Where's that? There it is, that chasm. I'll tell you what, Druidsfire. If I am thwarted by the landscape, then I'll start this next time. Okay. How are we doing? Okay. Not... Man, that's forever down there. And I'm not even able to go south successfully. I can't jump across there, can I? I think this was a bad idea. Trying to come around this way, I mean. I think I'm stuck. I can't get over. Can I go around this way? No. No, I can't. Yep, okay. Shortcut. Where am I? And we're back at the camp. Okay. Well, we'll continue this next time. All right. That's going to be getting down to those places on the at the base of Mount Doom is going to be more of an adventure than I thought. I'm going to definitely try to come at the one straight from the west there along the road, and then see if I can maybe go down to the other one from... I have no idea how I'm going to get to that bottom eastmost one. Yeah, okay. All right, well, fine. We shall continue to make our way towards accomplishing the Lûghash quest line, and have some more Stout-axe fun next time, and then perhaps move on towards Krasa Fursa and approaching Barad-dûr. All right. Thanks, everybody, for joining me. I believe I will be here again next week. So I'm going to be doing some travel in the second half of January. So I won't be here for either of the final 2 Fridays of January. I will be, but I'll be here, I believe, for next week. All right. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for joining me. Stay tuned for Druid's Fire, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye now. Thanks for joining in on my rambles around Standing Stone's brilliant digital adaptation of Tolkien's world. If you enjoy these adventures, please consider supporting this and other entertaining educational programming by donating at signumuniversity.org/fund.